Thomas De Quincey. Thomas De Quincey was an English essayist and critic, renowned for his most famous work, Confessions of an English Opium-Eater. De Quincey's life was marked by alienation from his prosperous mercantile family due to his sensitivity and exceptional intellectual abilities as a child. He ran away from home at the age of 17, living incognito in London and forming a significant friendship with a young prostitute named Anne. De Quincey later reconciled with his family in 1803 and pursued higher education at Worcester College, Oxford. During this time, he aspired to become the intellectual benefactor of mankind and developed a broad knowledge base which allowed him to write essays on various subjects such as history, biography, economics, psychology, and German metaphysics. However, De Quincey's life took a different turn when he began using opium in 1804 to alleviate facial neuralgia. By 1813, he had become a confirmed opium addict, using laudanum regularly. His addiction persisted throughout his life, affecting his personal and professional life. De Quincey was an early admirer of the lyrical ballads and developed a close association with its authors, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, in 1807. He even rented Dove Cottage at Grasmere, Wordsworth's former home, off and on from 1809 to 1833. In 1817, De Quincey married Margaret Simpson, who had already given birth to his son. Although he wrote prolifically, De Quincey published very little. His financial situation deteriorated, but his fame skyrocketed after the publication of Confessions in London Magazine in 1821. The book warned of the dangers of opium and offered a personal account of his addiction, providing a unique combination of a journalistic expose and the subjective experience of drug addiction. It remains a stylistic masterpiece of English literature due to its highly poetic and imaginative prose. In 1856, De Quincey wrote Confessions and expanded it with autobiographical material on his childhood and youth in London, as well as descriptions of opium-induced dreams. However, this version is more complicated and verbose. De Quincey's other autobiographical writings include The Lake Reminiscences, written between 1834 and 1840, offer a subjective and sometimes malicious perspective on his life and the Lake Poets. One of his notable contributions as a literary critic is the essay On the Knocking at the Gate in Macbeth, which provides a brilliant psychological insight into Shakespeare's work and is considered a classic of Shakespearean criticism. As he aged and endured personal losses, De Quincey became increasingly solitary and eccentric, retreating into opium-induced dreams. Out of the over 14 volumes of his work, only the original, Confessions, stands as a definitive literary expression of his talent and influence. Confessions of an English Opium-Eater. Confessions of an English Opium-Eater is an autobiographical work written by Thomas De Quincey, detailing his struggle with laudanum addiction and its profound impact on his life. Initially published anonymously in the London Magazine in September and October 1821, the work became De Quincey's first major publication and rapidly earned him fame. The work is divided into two parts. Part 1, Preliminary Confessions. This section serves as an introduction to the narrative. De Quincey addresses the reader, setting the stage for his remarkable life story. Part 1 primarily focuses on his childhood and youth, delving into the emotional and psychological factors that laid the groundwork for his later opium experiences. Notably, he recounts his experiences as a homeless runaway on Oxford Street in London in 1802 and 1803. Part 2, The Pleasures of Opium. Part 2 consists of several sections that provide an in-depth exploration of De Quincey's opium experiences. It begins with an introduction and a connecting passage. The Pleasures of Opium delves into the initial phase of the author's interaction with the drug, spanning from 1804 to 1812, highlighting the predominantly positive aspects of opium use. Introduction to the Pains of Opium. This section provides readers with the second installment of De Quincey's autobiography. It carries the narrative from his youth into adulthood, offering insight into his progression over time. The Pains of Opium. In this part, De Quincey narrates the peak of his opium experiences up to that point. He vividly describes the tormenting consequences of opium addiction, including insomnia, nightmares, unsettling visions, and complex physical symptoms. The work also includes a notice to the reader aimed at clarifying the chronological order of the entire narrative. Confessions of an English Opium-Eater provides a candid and introspective account of De Quincey's struggle with opium and serves as a significant literary exploration of addiction and its consequences. On the Knocking at the Gate in Macbeth. On the Knocking at the Gate in Macbeth is an insightful essay by Thomas De Quincey, an English author, focusing on Shakespearean criticism. This essay was first published in October 1823 edition of the London Magazine. Despite its brevity consisting of less than 2000 words, it is considered one of De Quincey's most exceptional critical works, and it's often praised as De Quincey's finest single critical piece. The essay revolves around Act 2, Scene 3 in William Shakespeare's play Macbeth. In this scene, King Duncan is murdered by Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Following the murder, Macduff and Lennox knock at the gate of the castle. This knocking marks the transition between Act 2, Scene 2 and Act 2, Scene 3, which includes the famous Porter scene. De Quincey found this knocking to be particularly significant, and it had a profound effect on him. He described how it added a sense of awe and solemnity to the play, reflecting back on the murderer. De Quincey admitted that he could not rationally explain this response using the conventional canons of literary criticism. Instead, he ventured into a more psychological interpretation of Shakespeare's work, foreshadowing the psychological approaches that would become prevalent in later literary criticism. The essay is considered penetrating and philosophic by De Quincey's biographer Horace Ainsworth Eaton. It offers profound insights into the emotional and psychological impact of Shakespeare's work, and it's often celebrated as a classic piece of literary criticism, demonstrating De Quincey's unique perspective.